Hello everyone. Today our special guest is Ms. Shibani Sirkar Kurian, Senior EVP and Head Equity Research, Kotak Mahindra Asset Management Company. Friends, do subscribe to our YouTube channel to get regular information of stock markets and interviews of industry experts. Welcome Shibani. It is a pleasure to host you today and listen to your valuable comments and views given your experience and knowledge.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I hope all of you are doing well. These are challenging times, but I pray that we get over this very soon. Thank you so much.
Right, we all are well, and we hope the same for you, your family, your colleagues, everyone.
Yes. So far, so good.
Yes. So Shibani, let me begin with the broader markets and the pandemic first. So what, according to you, will be the impact of COVID second wave on markets and economy?
Right. So this COVID wave has hit us suddenly. Clearly, things were improving and things turned for the worse, and it's happened very, very quickly. However, what we believe is that while in the near term, markets will see some degree of volatility, and there is no denying that this human pain that we are going through is tremendous. But let's look at it more from the economy and market perspective. One is that if you are looking at the impact for the year as a whole, the actual impact will get clearer over the next 1 or 2 months. What we have seen this time around, unlike what happened in April and May of last year, is that unlike a national lockdown, we are seeing mini containments or state-specific or region-specific lockdowns. So far, we have not seen a national lockdown. And hence, if you are looking at the actual economic impact, vis-a-vis the economic impact that was the case last year, the impact has been lower. Now, last year, there was a national lockdown, which means that all construction activity, manufacturing, everything came to a standstill. However, this time around, construction is still on, and therefore the impact has been felt more on services rather than on manufacturing. So in fact, if you look at the PMI manufacturing data, which just came out, it shows that April over March, there has not been much change. Our hope is that over the next couple of months, two things. One, the pace of vaccinations should improve, and then the 45 plus category, which is the most vulnerable category, a large portion of that will get vaccinated. And we will also have some sort of immunity building up and some sort of herd immunity of sorts building up as well. And that should help ease some of the pain that we are seeing from a medical infrastructure. And slowly we will get back to a track on the economic growth front. The actual impact, of course, for this April-May period will be seen in the first quarter numbers when the earnings per se come out. But so far, we don't anticipate a big cut as such for the full year FY22 estimates. We will wait and watch. But this is with the base case assumption that there is no national lockdown.
So today, RBI governor also came out with some, stimulus announcements. So any views on that?
Yeah, so I think what RBI is clearly saying is that they are here to provide liquidity and they are here to support growth. As long as we don't see structural growth coming back, they will keep the entire policy stance as accommodative, and they will keep here coming in at different intervals to support the economy, provide the liquidity necessary to the necessary segments, which is what the policy has done today. Our view is that, even post the last policy announcement, liquidity in the situation, in the entire system would stay ample. While we may not see policy rate cuts per se, the focus is clearly on growth rather than inflation. Inflation would likely remain within RBI's tolerance band, which means that for some time, it's unlikely that you will see rate hikes in the system. And in fact, today now with this COVID situation, rate hikes will possibly get pushed out, if at all, into next year. So stable policy rates and an accommodative liquidity stance, which means that the entire policy focus will be to support growth.
Right. So given the current situation, what are the sectors that you are overweight and underweight upon?
Right. So we are actually going through a fairly difficult time from a market perspective. Markets are clearly volatile at this point in time. From a portfolio perspective, we have adopted a barbell sort of a strategy. What we are saying is that we will have a mix of domestic cyclicals in the portfolio, but we will also have some defensives such as technology and pharma. Now, on the overweight side, we are overweight on domestic cyclicals such as private sector banks, cement, industrials. But we also have position in large cap pharma and large cap IT, I beg your pardon, as well as some stock specific exposures on the pharma side. There are 2-3 key themes that we are playing in our portfolio and which we believe are structural themes, not just for the next 1 or 2 quarters. The first is consolidation and market share shifts, which are being seen across sectors. And this is something that is accelerating in this COVID environment. There is also a shift from the unorganized to the organized, and a few companies are gaining market share. And this growth is likely to be scalable and sustainable in nature.
Right.
The second is the China plus one strategy, which is the supply chain shift away from China. And the third is we believe that manufacturing revival will play out. The government policy focuses clearly on bringing investment growth back and an investment-led GDP growth environment. While near term, there again will be challenges because of this current COVID phase that we are going through. But our belief is that manufacturing and industrial revival should start to play out over a period of time. So these are some of the prominent themes that are there in our portfolios.
Any sectors that investors should avoid for the near term?
So, a couple of things. One is that we've been staying away from public sector banks as such, except for one or two large public sector banks. Now, while at the margin, things have improved for most of the PSU banks, but one key constraint that is there is capital. Unlike the private banks which have raised capital, public sector banks are starved for capital. And today the government doesn't have too much of fiscal room to pump in capital as well. So growth is likely to be a challenge, and they've been losing market share. And that's something that we believe would possibly continue for most of them, except for the one or two larger ones. Some other segments such as utilities, we have been a little cautious on. Metals as a space, while we are currently positive on, but remember, metals is a cyclical and a commodity-led play is always short-term and tactical in nature. At this point in time, the cycle is in your favor, but clearly that is a tactical bet that we are playing in.
Because we are seeing a run-up in all the steel stocks also.
Yes. So clearly at this point in time, the steel cycle is in your favor. What's happening is globally, you're seeing demand coming back. Secondly, China is taking steps. One, to reduce pollution, and hence there are production impacts as well in China. Secondly, the export incentives are being withdrawn, which means all of this means that global commodity prices are likely to stay elevated at least for some time. Indian prices are at a discount to global prices, and that means that there is room for price hikes where Indian steel manufacturers are concerned. So near term, the cycle is positive, but one has to keep watching for a lot of the data, especially with respect to China economy and global economic factors, to understand the steel cycle and the commodity cycle as such.
So Shibani, generally, there is a perception that, women should stay away from markets and finance and the investing world. So generally in the households also, the male dominated households, they'll say कि women should stay away, finances to hum dekh lenge, ya na, ye औरतों का काम नहीं है वैसा. So what according to you should be the, method or the process, or how should women participate more in markets and finance and in the investing world?
So you've actually hit upon a topic which is very close to my heart. Now, I've spent about 21 years in this industry. When I joined the industry was pretty much male dominated, and of course over the years we've seen a lot of more women participation, but we have a long way to go. Even globally, in terms of fund management as an industry, we see that women participation has not really increased at the pace at which one would have expected. However, what I say, and this is true for anybody, right, whether it be somebody who's associated with the finance world or somebody who's not associated, financial independence is a imperative, right? And unfortunately for us, COVID is a disease that has hit us. And in this COVID scenario, the importance of financial independence for women becomes even more important. And I would stress on the fact that every woman, irrespective of whether you're a working woman or you are not, you should be aware of your own finances. You should be able to handle your own finances, and you should also be independent in terms of managing your money. Of course, as you said, usually it's a male-dominated phenomena where, the male members of the household take care of their finances. However, even if you look back, when our grandmothers were there, they would always manage the household, right? And they would always manage to save money, despite the fact that they were not working. And I think that's something that women do, right? So women know how to manage finances. They know how to do their budgeting for the month. So all of this comes very naturally to women. Often people say that, women make good fund managers because they're risk averse. I disagree. It's not about being risk averse. It's about being able to think differently and to take decisions which are different, and their thought process is different. So that's what makes women fund managers very unique. And finally, I would like to say is that, all of us know how to multitask. I think women have mastered the art of multitasking, and COVID has taught that everybody needs to multitask. So therefore, financial independence, financial literacy should be added to one of your tasks that you do normally in the period of a day.
Very true.
And
Yeah.
it's not really difficult. It's actually as simple as starting an SIP or a systematic investment plan in a mutual fund. And today everything is digital and online, so you can do it in the comfort of your house. There is no need to step out, and everything gets done at the tip of your fingers. So I would urge women to start saving, start managing their own finances, and understand how easy a process it is. And I can't stress more upon this than I already have.
So on a lighter note, I would ask you, like, how has been your journey into this profession, and how have you been, managing your responsibilities as a mother, as a wife, as a daughter, as a lady, and a very demanding profession?
It is a demanding profession, but it's something that I've enjoyed doing from day one, and it's something that I actually set out to do. So when I finished my MBA, I wanted to become an equity research analyst, and I wanted to be a fund manager. It's been a great journey. There are a couple of things that work for you. One, of course, you need household support. You need a family who understands what you really want to do and supports you. So your support system is very, very important. And I think I've been lucky to have that. So that's been great. The support system at home has been great. The support system at work has also been great. I worked in Kotak with colleagues who have never really, differentiated between men and women of equal opportunity. Kotak clearly is an equal opportunities employer, and that has helped me in terms of my growth across the last 20 years, of which almost 13 and a half years I've spent with Kotak. So it's challenging, but like I said, multitasking is something that we all do very well, right? So I have a son. My son is 16 years old now, and managing household, his studies, my work, all of that has been extremely challenging, but extremely fulfilling at the same time. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
Which I can look at, from your expressions, that you are a completely satisfied person on your personal as well as professional front.
Yes, it's been a great journey, and thank God for that. And I would say that in some ways there are some things that you want to fulfill in life, and I've been lucky enough that I've had the support from my family, from my work colleagues, from my bosses, my son, or everybody, which has helped me move along this journey. I still have a long way to go, I think. And and I would encourage everyone to live out your dreams, right? So it need not be specific to your profession or your career. It can be anything. But and I think this, while we look for, it's a tough time for everyone, but there is a silver lining. We have the time to maybe explore what we could not before. We maybe fulfill some ambitions, aspirations that we've had, but we never had the opportunity to explore. So maybe we should make use of this time to do the same. And as we were discussing earlier, taking the first step towards financial independence, there is never a better time than now.
Correct. So, and my last question, which will be, what is the, your view, your outlook on the market performance in the medium term or in the next 6 months?
So let's look at market from a slightly longer period. So the next few months will possibly be volatile for the markets, given the current uncertainty that there are. There are a few things to look at. Firstly, let's look at the earnings season. The expectation for FY22 in terms of earnings is still elevated. So, most of the consensus numbers are between 25 and 30% earnings growth for FY22. If there is no national lockdown, we believe that we will be closer to this number in terms of earnings growth. Near term, there could be some disruptions. Last few quarters, we saw earnings upgrade cycle. However, the impact of COVID will be felt in Q1, and therefore the earnings upgrades may not come through. So far, for Q4, what we have seen is that the earnings have been largely in line with expectations. On the valuation front, with the markets correcting a bit, valuations have become a little bit more reasonable. However, what we also need to look at is India's valuation premium to emerging markets. That has also come down to mean levels. So valuations have moderated somewhat, though they are still elevated. At this point in time, what we are saying is that we are, in terms of asset allocation, we should be neutral in terms of equity asset allocation. Markets correct, then we should increase the asset allocation. Overall, our bias is a little bit more towards the mid and the small caps. Our belief is that as economic recovery starts to pick up pace, the mid caps are more geared to economic recovery. Of course, one has to be patient because these are slightly longer term kind of stories. But in terms of overall asset allocation, we are still slightly overweight on mid and small caps.
So according to you, our investors should look at private sector banks, cement and IT and pharma stocks, and should probably, avoid public sector banks in the near term. And you are also overweight on mid cap stories, right?
Yes. Yeah. So pretty much so. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Shibani, for taking the time out and providing us this opportunity to benefit from your valuable insights, and also, providing us your a brief about your journey into the investment world. I hope you enjoyed the session as much as we did.
Thank you so much. It was really interesting talking to you, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to share my journey as well. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.